to be a lamp lit. If Christ is who I stand for, my city's dark and man sick, I'm supposed to be on lamp mode. Yeah, lamp mode, and not the label that I'm signed to, but let him shine through and spread the dudes like swine flu. Was dead until he showed his banging shine and rearranged my mind. Now I'm alive like Frankenstein. Hey, I'm on my grind, but you should certainly know, don't trip much off the worker, but the God the work is working for.
Json, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Hey, man, my pleasure, man. Absolutely.
Now, you just recently released a new album, City Lights. Talk a little bit about this project, the theme, and how it's different than projects that have come in the past.
Man, City Lights is very dear to my heart. It's the first time where God really allowed me to write to the context that I really have a burden for. Primarily, like the hood type people that are affected by the same things I've been affected by. So the theme of City Lights isn't necessarily, the theme isn't geared towards unbelievers.
Okay.
The theme is geared towards believers. So it's encouraging believers to be a light wherever they are.
Okay.
And really throughout the album, all I'm doing is saying, my area is this, and I'm a light to this area. And not even calling people to necessarily be a light to my area or that type of environment, but just saying, look, I'm a light to mine, so you go be a light to yours.
Okay.
So that's really where the heart of the album comes from.
Okay. Now, there are a couple of songs that are pretty big on the album that people have talked about, namely You Are Not a Goon and Parent Me. Talk a little bit about those two tracks and kind of what birthed those tracks. Where did they come from for you?
Goon was the first single we released from the album, and you know Thizzle, when his partners got killed. Shout out to Thizzle. He's working on a new album, Be Out, Beautiful Monster. Check for that. But one of his partners that got killed, and we had the funeral at our church. Me and him went to the same church at this time, and we were kind of over the whole funeral. Fizz preached at the funeral, and he said, like, God did not make you to be a goon. And when I heard that, I was like, wow. And it was all goons and it was all real killers, like, there. So I'm like, man, it just kind of caught my attention. As soon as I left, I wrote the hook. And it just kind of came from looking out and seeing those type of dudes and saying, like, yo, God didn't make you to be like that. But we wrote it from the perspective of, like, we've come from that environment. Parent Me, though, was a song that was inspired by seeing broken homes. Now, I already knew I wanted to do the song, but I was watching a documentary on Lil Wayne, and they was interviewing his daughter, and they asked her, they said, what's the greatest gift your father ever gave you? And she thought about it, and she said, when he came home. And it blew my mind. I was like, wow, like, it doesn't matter the social ladder, it doesn't matter where you are on the economical ladder, educational, like, none of that makes a difference. The reality is still the same. The kids need their parents, not just providing for them, but in their lives. So the song came from that perspective. And the last verse, I was looking out at the church, and I was like, it's so easy to address those who don't know Jesus about this subject matter. But I think those who do know Jesus need to be addressed, because we can spend more time doing the work of the Lord without building up the first work that the Lord has given us, namely our family. So those are two songs that just really did in my heart. Okay.
Now your career is done in conjunction with working in a church community. And a lot of times, obviously, if you look at secular hip-hop, that's not the reality. They can say it's about the people, but in all honesty, it's about sales, it's about their fame. They can go home, and they can have, their $1 million homes and whatever have you. But in the Christian hip-hop game, it's about ministry. Talk about how what you do in ministry informs what you do as a hip-hop artist, and vice versa.
Man, I remember Kirk Franklin made a statement. He said that albums should be lived and not just written. And I think my music is a reflection of that. So, for example, when you hear Life on Life, a lot of people was like, well, all of them talking about discipleship. Well, the reality was we all were being rocked by the same books, the same things that were going on in our community. So when you hear Lecrae or Trip or Flame or me mentioning these subjects, it's not like we all just trying to ride the same bandwagon, but because we friends, we'll read a book and be like, yo, check this out. I'm rocked by the book. He rocked by the book. That's coming out in our music. So with most of my albums, what's happened is that I've been at that stage in life. So with Life on Life, like, not only was I just talking about discipleship, but I was very active in doing that. City Lights was birthed out of the same heart. So when we talk about church community, I think that goes hand in hand with doing any ministerial work. So when I say, like, yo, I'm on stages preaching the gospel, that should go hand in hand with me serving in my local congregation. It's not like I serve in my local congregation so that I can do on-stage work. It's that God calls us to do work in my local congregation, and as a reflection, you see what I do on the stage. So when I look at the Bible, I look at Scripture, I think music is secondary. The Lord is using it greatly, but the primary way by which God wants to reach people is through the local church. So I'm currently living in Iowa. I know some people are like, what the heck are you doing in Iowa? But I moved there back in August, me and my family. I'm on staff with a church called Parkview. You can check out the church at parkviewchurch.org. And I serve at a ministry that my church has called The Spot. And if you know anything about Chicago, they tore down the projects called the Cabrini Green. When they tore those projects down, a lot of the families migrated to Iowa because Iowa was offering free housing to a lot of those families. So the kids I work, though my church is predominantly Caucasian, though Iowa is predominantly Caucasian, all the kids I work with are predominantly African American. So we run a program on Mondays, Wednesdays, and I work primarily with the older kids on Wednesdays. We average about 120 kids a week. 98% of them don't know Jesus at all. And we get it in with them, man. So, like, that's currently what I'm doing. My brother and them are in the process of planting a church in St. Louis, and I'm going to be a part of that church when I go back. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, I mean, within the church, people have said, the most segregated hour, time, on earth is, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on Sunday morning, because black churches are black churches, white churches are white churches. And you just admitted, I'm working in a predominantly white church, but the people that you work with most are predominantly African American. What are some of the tensions that you have experienced moving your family from a, decidedly urban context to a decidedly suburban context, and dealing with, being kind of a leader in a ministry of a predominantly white church, but the ministry itself is to predominantly black people. What have been some of the tensions that you've experienced in that? No direct tensions in that, like, people treating me unfairly. But I think there are cultural tensions that exist. So, for example, relationally, I think African Americans, by large, are more spontaneous. They're less calculated. So, especially in their relationships. So, like, sometimes when you're dealing with different cultures, you have to understand, like, my Caucasian brothers ain't going to come and just spill all of everything that's going on in their life on the table. And it's kind of natural. However, I come from an environment where that's just natural, you know what I mean? Or I can just drop by your house and I don't have to plan every one of our meetings, you know what I mean, or 3 weeks in advance, or, so those are some of the relationships has been the most difficult tensions. Understanding that people think through things differently. One of my friends that I work with, his name is Doug, and he's a Caucasian brother, and he was like, man, I find it so weird when I talk to dudes that are black on the phone. He's like, because y'all never say goodbye. And I'm always waiting for the conversation to end by saying goodbye. But you just be like, all right. That's how the conversation ends. But naturally for him, it's like goodbye. That's when it's over. So that's a cultural tension. Or he like, man, growing up, like, you never went in nobody else's refrigerator. Like, he was like, I go to my brother's house, I won't even open their refrigerator. It just ain't. But where I'm from, it's like, yo, like, once you're my family, my way of showing hospitality is saying everything in here is yours. If you want something, go in the not that I don't want to serve you, but in context, serving you is saying you're welcome to anything you have. So mainly cultural tensions, and then being able to kind of wrestle through those tensions. You know what I mean?
besides the tensions, let's look at the flip side of that. What have been some really good things that have come out of, the cross-cultural ministry that you're part of?
Some of the things are just like being calculated, having things planned consistently, because it can be good and bad. In some cases, you need stuff to be continually gone over, continually talked about, you know what I mean? Always sifting through ideas and making sure things are on point, being timely, you know what I mean? Like, when our service starts, before the service starts, the time is counting down. When it hits 0, worship is
you go. Okay.
There's no, you know what I mean? So that's dope. And then just seeing how they give freely of their time. And I ain't gonna front, like, in most African American environments, a lot of our brothers, man, like, we stingy with our time. Like, we only wanna serve what we wanna serve. So when I look at, I'm like, man, wow, like, just seeing the way they give of their time is just really amazing, and it's challenging. So,
one final question. I know you've had a long night, so I want to let you go. But got some albums out now. Let's look down the road, 5, 10, 20 years. Career is done, doing something else, and then beyond that, now you're standing before the throne of God. Your life has come to a close. This part of your life has come to a close. You're standing before the throne of God. What would you want Him to say of you in that moment?
I mean, everybody would say, we want Him to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Man, I think the biggest wrestle is trying to continue to examine my heart in prayer that I haven't been building a kingdom for myself. I look forward to God affirming, like, you've really been building my kingdom and not your own. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the fog of, I'm doing this for the glory of God, and then examining your heart and saying, like, God, like, what am I really building with? So I just look forward to God saying, like, God, you've been doing it for my glory. Because sometimes I'm in fear of my own heart. Sometimes I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this sometimes. Like, sometimes I'm like, God, did I just enjoy what I did on the stage because they enjoyed me on the stage? So, and then there's a point where that's not bad.
Right.
Ending up, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
always that tension you're walking, that fine line.
Absolutely, man. So just the relief of God saying, well done, but you serve my kingdom and not your own.
Thank you very much, Json. Thank you so much for spending time and being real with us.